When Daniel's enemies decided to destroy him, they ran into a problem. They could not find anything wrong with his work. These were not casual observers. These were senior officials in the Babylonian administration, men who were motivated by jealousy and threatened by Daniel's rising influence. They had every reason to dig and every resource to do it. So they looked. They examined his decisions. They reviewed his record. They searched for the kind of carelessness, the kind of corner cutting, the kind of quiet compromise that most people allow to creep into their work when no one is watching. They found nothing. The 6th chapter of Daniel records it plainly. The men said amongst themselves that they would never find any ground for complaint against Daniel unless they found it in connection with the law of his God. His work was flawless. His integrity was total. The only way to bring him down was to make faithfulness to God itself a crime. Think about what that means. Daniel was not protected because he prayed hard enough or because God intervened before things got difficult. He was in a position where his enemies had no ammunition because he had never given them any. His excellence was his defense. His standard of work had made him nearly untouchable. And yet Daniel had not been born into privilege in Babylon. He had been taken there as a captive, a foreigner, a young man stripped of his home, his culture, and his name. Everything about his circumstances said that no one would have noticed if he had done the minimum. He chose a different standard. Most people approach their career the way they approach a vending machine. You put in the time, you press the button, and you expect the reward to drop. When it does not, you press the button again. You wait a little longer, you grow frustrated, you start to feel that the system is broken, that the recognition is going somewhere else, that the people making decisions cannot see what you bring. And sometimes that is true. Sometimes the room is unfair. Sometimes the promotion goes to the wrong person. But here is the question worth sitting with before you conclude that the system failed you. What is the quality of your work on a Tuesday afternoon when your manager is not watching? What does your output look like when you are tired, when the project is not exciting, when the task feels beneath you? Because most people have two modes: the visible mode, which they bring out when something is being evaluated, and the ordinary mode, which is what they actually do most of the time. God is not interested in your visible mode. He sees the ordinary mode. And what Proverbs says about the person who has mastered the ordinary is striking. Chapter 22, verse 29. Do you see a man skilled in his work? He will stand before kings. He will not stand before obscure men. Not he might, not he could, he will. The promotion you have been asking for may be closer than you think, but the path to it is a higher standard of what you are already doing. The Apostle Paul writes to the church at Colossae in his letter, chapter 3, verse 23, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord and not for men." Read that again slowly. Whatever you do. Not the visible assignments, not the high-stakes projects, not the work that goes in front of leadership. Whatever you do. The email no one will remember, the meeting that will not make it into any report, the task that pays the same whether you do it well or barely. Paul is not writing about performance, he is writing about identity. The person who works as though God is watching does not do it to be seen. They do it because that is who they are. Their standard does not change based on the audience. Now consider what happens when that person exists inside an organization. When a role needs to be filled, whose name comes to mind first? When a problem needs someone reliable, who gets the call? The person who works hard when it counts, or the person who works hard without exception? There is a second figure worth understanding alongside Daniel. His name is Joseph. Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers, taken to Egypt, and placed in the household of a man named Potiphar. He had every reason to do the minimum. Instead, chapter 39 of Genesis tells us that the Lord was with Joseph and that he became a successful man. And Potiphar saw it. He saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord caused all that Joseph did to succeed in his hands. Joseph did not petition Potiphar for a better position. He simply worked at a standard that made the blessing visible. The promotion came to him. He did not chase it. Both Daniel and Joseph share the same pattern. Difficult circumstances, no guarantee of reward, a standard of excellence that existed independently of whether anyone was watching. and ultimately, a promotion that neither of them could have engineered on their own. The pattern is not a coincidence. So here is where this lands in your actual life, in the job you are in right now, the one that may not feel like it is going anywhere. You have been waiting for recognition. That is understandable. Wanting to be seen for what you contribute is not vanity, it is human. But waiting has a way of turning into a posture, a quiet resentment that leaks into your work. The person who feels overlooked gradually stops bringing their best to the work that is not being noticed, which means the very thing they need to do to change their situation is the first thing they stop doing. Ask yourself this honestly. If God reviewed your work output from the last 3 months, not your prayers about your career, not your conversations about where you feel you should be, but the actual quality of what you produced, what would he find? Would he find a person ready for more responsibility, or would he find someone whose standard is calibrated to what they are currently getting paid for? There is a gap for many people between the level they believe they are at and the level their work actually demonstrates. Closing that gap is not comfortable. It requires raising your standard in the unsexy parts of your role, the follow-through, the attention to detail, the quality of the work that no one asked you to improve. God does not promote people to positions they have not grown into. He does not set people up to fail. What looks like a closed door from your side often looks like an unmet standard from his. Here is what obedience looks like in this particular season. Stop counting the months since your last raise. Stop building the case for why you deserve what you have not yet received. That energy is expensive and it's going to the wrong place. Instead, pick one area of your current work where your standard has slipped, not because you're lazy, but because you stopped seeing the point, and raise it. This week. Not dramatically, not in a way that performs for an audience, just quietly between you and God, decide that this work will be done at a level that would hold up to scrutiny. Proverbs 22 is not a promise to the ambitious, it's a promise to the skilled. Skill is not talent. Talent is what you were born with. Skill is what you have built through repeated, disciplined effort over time. It can be developed in any role at any level. Daniel was not born excellent. He chose excellence inside circumstances that would have justified far less. And because of that choice, made in obscurity, he eventually stood before kings, not because he asked to, because there was no one else in the room at his level. That same path is available to you. Back to the man in Babylon who had no ammunition against him. There is something quietly powerful about living in a way that gives your critics nothing to work with. Not because you are trying to outsmart them, but because your standard of work has simply outpaced their ability to diminish you. That is not just a career strategy. That is a witness. It is what Paul means when he says to work as for the Lord. The excellence is not for your employer. It is not for the promotion. It is an act of worship. It is you saying, through the quality of what you put your hands to, that the God you serve is worth reflecting in everything you do. You have been asking for a promotion. God has been watching your Tuesday afternoons. The gap between those two things is where the real work begins.